Everyone, welcome to this special edition of News Central, the exclusive, all the way from New York, United States of America. And our guest today is none other than the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuggar, OON. His Excellency, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I know it's been a very busy week for everybody, especially for you. How have you been able to move through the week so far?
Well, it moved quite rapidly, but everything went well. Copacetic, I would say. The president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was supposed to have come. Unfortunately, he was detained by some of the exigencies of leadership back in Nigeria. So he was represented ably, I might add, by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima.
Okay, sir. All right, thank you, sir. So we'll go straight into the meat of the matter. And, well, this is United Nations General Assembly week. So pretty much everything being talked about is foreign policy, whether Nigeria or not. And that will be the center of our conversation today. Now, my first question, how has Nigeria, in your opinion, how do you think Nigeria has been able to, evolve in recent years, especially concerning regional stability in West Africa?
Well, you will see that Nigeria has always been ceded the mantle of leadership, of ECOWAS in particular, whenever there are challenges. If you look at the Sierra Leonean crisis, Liberia, and others, you'll find that at that time, because the leadership of ECOWAS, to be the chair of the authority of the heads of state and government, is meant to be for 1 year. But look at the records, you'll see that Nigeria is yielded the leadership, and even when the term expires, the 1-year term, it is renewed. You'll see that during the crisis period or challenges, it's Nigeria. And it's the same thing that we're experiencing now because of the challenges that we've been confronted with by the unconstitutional changes of government in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and of course also even Guinea. But this is something, and the reason why that happens is because of Nigeria's leadership qualities and its antecedents, what is done in the past. And we're tackling them, and President Bola Tinubu remains the chairman of ECOWAS, and we're making all necessary efforts, diplomatic and otherwise.
All right, sir. Let's go to global partnerships now. What are the top priorities for Nigeria in terms of strengthening diplomatic and economic relationships with global powers? And by global powers, I particularly mean the likes of the United States, the EU, and most interestingly, around this period, China.
No, absolutely. Well, you will see, I think a measure of how well we're doing is the fact that I believe within a span of 1 or 2 months, we signed agreements with both the United States and China. And our approach is strategic autonomy. We get along with all countries the same way, as I described earlier. The fact that Nigeria is non-threatening towards its neighbors is the way we engage with countries, even if they're not getting along with each other. If you look at our constitution and the foreign policy objectives contained therein, you will see that after national interest is to ensure peace and stability in Africa. And then the next thing is the issue of our relationships with other countries all around the world. The fact that we want to get along with them in peace and economic prosperity and stability. And importantly, that we abide by our commitments in terms of treaties and treaty obligations and other legal instruments that we are signatories to.
All right, sir. My third question brings us back to something you touched on in the first question, and that's ECOWAS and regional stability. How would you say Nigeria is navigating the current political instability in neighboring countries, especially with, like you mentioned earlier, Nigeria's leadership role in ECOWAS?
What we're doing, as I said, is diplomatic efforts, but also it's of course the region faces challenges to do with terrorism. This is not something any country can take on its own. So there's a need for regional cooperation. If you look at what we are doing with the multinational joint task force, it is laudable, it's commendable. You know what our military is doing jointly with those of our neighbors, and it is a model. When Nigeria, if you look at what we had done in the past with ECOMOG, for instance, because it's homegrown, we came up with the idea, and it's Nigeria leading. It's more likely to succeed than when foreign powers try to come in to the region to solve our problems. You can see the clear failure of the ECOWAS Sahel strategy when, EU Sahel strategy, I wanted to say.
Okay.
When they came into the ECOWAS region, they tried to implement Operation Barkhane, Sahel G5, and all of that. Nigeria was not part of it, and really it's more effective for you to engage Nigeria in such initiatives, or to allow Nigeria to come up or lead such initiatives, and then for others to support it. So this is what we want to encourage. It's our neighborhood. We understand it better than others. We understand the dynamics, and this is what we hope would provide the model for future engagements. And we don't want to see private military companies coming in, or mercenaries trying to solve the problems, because it exacerbates it, it makes it even worse.
I couldn't agree more. My own father was an ECOMOG contingent many years ago.
There you have it.
We know what Nigeria led.
Exactly.
Coincidentally, today marks 32 years since he's passed.
My condolences.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to that now, of course, we have to talk about the diaspora. And my question now here is that Nigeria has a significant diaspora, no doubt about that. What steps is the government taking to better engage and harness the potentials of the Nigerians in diaspora for national development?
Well, if you look at the fulcrum of the Tinubu administration's foreign policy agenda, it's the 4Ds. So democracy, development, demography, and diaspora. And we have diaspora in there to help us focus on the importance and the emphasis that we're laying to diaspora, because diaspora is the first point of contact between other countries and Nigeria. So it's important that they project a very positive image, and it's also important for government to provide them with all the necessary support, which is what we're trying to do with 109 missions all around the world, so that consular services that we render are improved. It is also important that narratives about Nigeria, framing them and espousing them, which is mostly through the diaspora, is paid attention to, so that we project positive image, and also to use our diaspora to our advantage, the same way other countries are doing so, because they have a voice in the domestic politics of other countries. And the fact that we have such a huge diaspora means that we really need to do more. There's a lot of lip service paid to the quantum of remittances. I'm not saying it's not significant. It can even be more. It can be, if you look at what the Philippines is doing with a population of, I think, about 130 million. They have a diaspora of, I think, about 8 million, and yet that 8 million is contributing as much as 13% to their GDP. Look at Nigeria, population 220, roughly we have a diaspora of about 15 million. It's only contributing 6%, roughly, of our GDP. So more, there can be more of that. And diaspora also within the realm of the 4Ds is what we want to use to engage other countries that have a deficit of skilled workers. We've come to terms with the fact that we are a human resource rich nation. We're not looking at it negatively. Those that have that deficit, that are interested in professionals, Nigerian professionals going to work in their countries, we want to negotiate with them so that Nigerians go out with dignity, with respect. It's not enough for you to say you want a Nigerian doctor or nurse, but her children are not allowed to go along with her, or her husband, or the wages that you'll be paying the Nigerian doctor or nurse would be lower than what you'll be paying someone that is coming from another country. So these are things that we have to negotiate through agreements. And then those countries, because we also need those doctors, nurses, engineers, should come and invest in the very training schools in producing the skilled workers, so that if one goes out, 3 remain in Nigeria. So that is what we're looking to achieve.
All right. And I didn't plan this before, but of course, from your response, you've shown that there's huge significance in with the Nigerians in diaspora, and there's a lot to gain from them. But there's still the argument and the question about them being able to vote so that they can have a voice in Nigeria's politics and Nigeria's democracy. But we still have that challenge. Are we going to see that change anytime soon?
It will come, but it has to come at the right time, because we have enough challenges with those at home voting, and for us, but I'm a victim of election rigging. As far back as 2011, before accreditation was even introduced. So I know how difficult. I know, we've come a long way since then, but there's still room for improvement. We have to look at, why don't we address the issue of local council elections first? Make sure that they're cleaner, they're freer, they're fairer, and then we look towards diaspora. So, and we can be a litigious society as well. There's so much litigation. So you can imagine the amount of litigation that diaspora voting will attract before we finally get it right. So one thing at a time. Let's get things right at home first and foremost.
All right, thank you for that, sir. We're gradually wrapping this up. I'll come to bilateral agreements now, and could you, briefly, maybe 1 or 2, highlight any recent bilateral agreements that have been particularly impactful for Nigeria?
I don't know where to start, because there have been so many. Equatorial Guinea, a treaty that was signed during President Tinubu's visit. Equatorial Guinea is running out of gas for its LNG plant that is producing, and a treaty was signed between Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea so that the Nigerian gas can supply the LNG plant that is existing and operating. That is almost immediate. There were several agreements that were signed during President Tinubu's visit to India that attracted investment. Some of it we're beginning to feel the effects of, as much as 15 billion. There is the IDICE agreement with France for training of Nigerians in the space of digital technology, that would create a lot of jobs for young Nigerians, so that they're funded and they can, access the jobs that are increasingly opening up in the digital space. Every country we go to, we're signing an agreement. Nigeria's recent upgrading of its relationship with China from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership with so many different agreements, that would allow for China to continue investing in the development of infrastructure. And infrastructure has an immediate impact on job creation for the young. So because when you're building railway or road or bridges or even fiber optic cabling, you have to employ labor. The labor, they have to eat amala and tuwo and eba. So the lady that is cooking in the village, will be selling. She would need to hire, some other people to even help her to cook the tuwo and the amala and the eba. And so it goes. So, there's so many of these agreements. Almost everywhere we've been, agreements have been signed.
All right, sir. And as I come to my last question, of course, this it's inevitable that I ask this particular question because every African leader has talked about this in the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. And of course, I'm talking about United Nations and the global governance. What is Nigeria's stance as reforming, I beg your pardon, global governance structure, particularly the United Nations Security Council?
Well, it's something that Nigeria has been advocating for a long time because you see, what we have in place now is a global governance structure that was created at the end of the Second World War, when Nigeria was not even independent. Most of Africa was still under the yoke of colonial rule. So it was the victors of that Second World War that became the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council with veto powers. And then the remaining 10 are being rotated amongst other countries, from around the world. Each continent is represented. We feel it's high time that it is fairer, that it is more democratic, and a country like Nigeria that is the largest in Africa, and the importance of Africa in global politics, in global governance, requires that a country like Nigeria has a permanent seat with veto powers. So this is what we're looking to achieve, and we're happy to see that we're all singing from the same hymn book now. And if you had followed the submissions of countries in the Summit of the Future, in the country statements that they delivered during the General Assembly, they all agree that it's time to reform the United Nations Security Council. And many have stepped up to say Africa should belong, should have. Some even say Africa should have 2 seats.
His Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuggar, OON, we want to say a very big thank you for obliging us this minutes of your time. We know how busy it's been for you, but thank you for joining us on this News Central exclusive interview. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.